Bitcoin, the magical money of the internet and the money of the future today. In this video, I will be exploring the adoption of Bitcoin and where we actually are in that process currently and where we are going to be heading with that process. Now, just a quick note before we do kick off this conversation is that if you are new around here and you are looking for a great place to go and trade the top cryptocurrencies, then there is a link down below for Binance. It is my personal go-to for trading the top currencies in the crypto markets. Now, to start this conversation, I think it is incredibly important that we first acknowledge that we have to look beyond our own confirmation bias and our own little crypto land bubble and realize that most people don't know very much at all about cryptocurrencies, having at best heard the name Bitcoin. And even if we feel like using Bitcoin is easy, maybe as easy as eating pie for many people, but it does still remain a deep mystery for the majority of the population. We are still in the early stages, but how early and how much opportunity remains? That's the question we're going to be addressing today. It's also worth understanding that we are not aiming for 100% of living humans to use Bitcoin. Babies are not going to use Bitcoin. Sorry, babies. Uncontacted Amazon tribes, they're not going to use Bitcoin. Sorry, Amazon tribes. What we are looking for here, billions and mainstream adoption. That's the real conversation. It is really important to note here too that we cannot talk just about Bitcoin, but crypto adoption as a whole. While Bitcoin may be the tip of the spear, we see much innovation going on from blockchain games, land registry, decentralized identities, various payment coins like Litecoin. But Bitcoin, as always, leads the charge and is the battering ram knocking down the gates of finance. So, it will be the main thrust of our conversation today to be discussing Bitcoin, but I also want to acknowledge the role of the other cryptocurrencies here as well. Now let's take a look at the adoption curve. On the left, we have the innovators. These are the earliest people to arrive to the party. They are open to risk and they are open to experimenting. The second stage is the early adopters, which is, I personally believe, where we are right now in the early stages of the early adopter phase, which is why we see the first pioneers in experimenting in different things like accepting it for businesses, etc., etc. The third stage is the early majority. These are the people that will come through the door after others have opened that door for them. After that, we have the late majority. These will be the ones that adopt only because everyone else is already doing it. And it's the cool thing to do now to be into Bitcoin. It's already cool, but they don't know it yet. And then finally, of course, we have the laggards. Those people who fear all change. Those people who still write paper checks as the primary means of payment to other people. It's craziness, but it still happens. These people, the laggards, to be honest, are the least of our worries. Our focus needs to be on that sweet middle 68% of people. Now, also to note here that this is really a super multi-layered discussion, and while we can make incredibly sweeping speculation about the global scene and the global population, the reality is that the adoption curve for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies will look very different through the lens of, for example, different age groups or different income levels, and yes, the country that you live in. Also, due to the fact that we have an increasingly connected global society, the adoption curves for new technology are moving in a much faster way than ever before. So it's kind of hard to draw exact parallels to some other kind of analogy for Bitcoin. So I'll be examining really the overall picture as it stands on its own merits. But of course, we can consider that as we move from the initial adoption, that a tipping point will at some point be reached. This tipping point serves to mark the end of the early adopter phase and really start of that exponential growth phase. And because we are talking about a scarce asset, the real exponential price movement can happen as a result of this as well, because once a technology reaches a certain phase, its growth becomes nearly unstoppable. We can look, just as a quick example, at how things such as tablets and smartphones and social media all took off after reaching their tipping points, and now they are a regular part of life. The advent of all this technology, of course, like smartphones and tablets, means that the adoption of cryptocurrency is actually all the easier to achieve and will happen even faster. Again, the adoption curves increase over time. Now, this is where we start to see the cost of rejection of cryptocurrencies actually becomes much more onerous than the cost of adopting cryptocurrencies. As a thought, can you imagine a company that doesn't have a website or a shop that doesn't accept credit card payments? Look, those exist. They do. But they seem old-fashioned. They seem out of step with the time. They are the laggards. It is worth understanding, too, that Bitcoin, and indeed many other cryptocurrencies, have the inherent characteristics which make them to be desirable as global currencies. They are decentralized. They are very transparent. Sometimes they're private. They're borderless. Bitcoin, due to the network effect, even though, yes, we do have many technical shortcomings which we do need to address as the years go on and that we do need to overcome to make this into even more of a reality, is incredibly well positioned to be the front runner for being the global cryptocurrency, or at least the global standard of cryptocurrency. Globally, of course, we do see a wildly different picture, as we have countries that are doing everything in their power to try and stop people from buying and selling and using Bitcoin. Countries like China. But then we have, of course, the many innovator countries, the countries that are increasingly getting involved in cryptocurrency. Countries like China are more of an outlier at the moment. For example, over in Ukraine, recent reports show that up to 13% of people own Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency, and that daily a few $1 million in value is actually in circulation in the economy. These numbers, if true, would mean that Ukraine is actually a strong adopter at this stage and is firmly in that early adopter area, and that there are millions of Ukrainians who are willing to check out of the hryvnia, which is the local currency, a currency which has been crushed by the corrupt and inept clowns who put themselves in charge of that economy. Then we have Japan. Japan is actually the biggest market for Bitcoin after the dollar. And the government has actually been passing some rather positive regulations in order to try and help the crypto industry thrive. And major announcements like Japan Railways, guys, they're accepting cryptocurrencies for tickets. That is a massive boost for crypto adoption. Then, of course, over in Europe, we have Switzerland and Malta and France and Estonia, and they're all duking it out in the EU to be the crypto-friendliest country in the region. Even Belarus is trying to get in on the crypto party. Over in South America, Venezuelans have found crypto to be very useful as a lifeline to the outside world, avoiding the crippling US sanctions currently affecting the economy. Zimbabweans Zimbabweans have been buying Bitcoin in order to check out of their own joke of a fiat currency. In Nigeria, Nigerians have been using Bitcoin to avoid their draconian capital controls enforced by the government. All this is happening, guys. The Thais love crypto, and the Thai government has been working very hard to try and welcome and to enable the industry to grow locally. Australia is all in on crypto, with the government taking a largely positive stance towards crypto, even though the banks are not super excited about it. We have local shops in Australia that offer the chance to buy Bitcoin. You can pay your bills with Living Room with Satoshi. Lots of restaurants accept it. Very cool stuff. In the USA, the picture changes from state to state. We have Colorado and Wyoming and Montana and California. They all love crypto. But then there's New York. Oh, New York. New York has made a lot of pain for the crypto industry, which is very unfortunate because I know there's lots of crypto enthusiasts in New York. Now, there are some key events also that we need to keep an eye on, as these events are an incredibly good indicator of how far along in the process of mass adoption we actually are. The first is receiving salaries in Bitcoin. It's already happening, guys. In some situations, anyway. For example, exchanges like Kraken and Binance actually pay salaries to their employees in crypto, should they, of course, so desire to receive it like that. Recently, some NFL players in the United States have started calling to be paid in Bitcoin by their football teams, which is pretty awesome. And we have a few other companies around the world, too, that have started to offer the option for employees to get paid in crypto. Still a minority, but it's happening. Then there's taxes. Oh yeah, taxes. Screw taxes, man. But many people will say that this is the key barrier Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies need to pass. When I can pay my taxes in Bitcoin, then it's real money, says some people. Well, in the US state of Ohio, yeah, you can pay your taxes using Bitcoin. Sweet. It's already happening. Other states are also working to make that a reality as well. Some different cities and around the world have also made that a thing. Then we have major company acceptance. Now, this has been another point when it comes to the conversation. No big companies are ever gonna use the technology or build on the technology. Well, Microsoft is building a decentralized identity solution on Bitcoin. And Ernst & Young is building software on Ethereum. And PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte are working with VeChain. It's happening. And the list really does go on when it comes to corporates that are building on crypto. But more than just big companies using the technology has been the conversation around the acceptance of cryptocurrency as money. And actually, we are increasingly seeing merchant adoption. We may not be seeing as many people want to pay in it, but merchants are adopting. And that's for Bitcoin and a wide range of cryptocurrencies. Now, this is driving a boom in large-scale merchant adoption as companies like Bakkt, which is working on payment processing for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies with major retailers like Starbucks. Although this is not yet deployed, it will happen here in the near future. And then we have the Spedden app, which is also available now. You can go and download it and start using it. It allows for Bitcoin payments, but by using the existing systems that shops already have, so using their tablets and QR codes to make easy payments. So even though many merchants are not directly accepting crypto, they don't have a "we accept Bitcoin" sign up in the window, you can actually pay them in cryptocurrencies via an ever-increasing number of services. So next time you go to Nordstrom's or to Dunkin' Donuts, you can pay in Bitcoin if you have the Spedden app, or if you have a 10x card or a Crypto.com card or any of this kind of stuff. Or if you are an AT&T customer, well, they just announced that they're going to start accepting Bitcoin via BitPay. Lots of exciting things happening on that front. Many people have also cited the acceptance of major financial institutions as the sign that we need that Bitcoin is gonna go mainstream and that's reaching mainstream acceptance. Well, we have been making a lot of progress on that front as well. The CME has a large and very liquid futures market for Bitcoin. There are also many large players who are trying to get a Bitcoin ETF passed at the moment, and major institutions like Fidelity are starting to sell Bitcoin to their customers. But it is still early days for all of these different products and solutions and institutions. And although we have had the first pension funds putting money into cryptocurrencies via Morgan Creek Capital, we still need to see a lot more of these coming in. But they are the early pioneers. They are the ones who are opening the door for others. And others will follow. Now, Bitcoin as a brand as well is growing all the time. Even though the mass media usually just attacks Bitcoin for one thing or another, terrorists and something like that, or maybe they just report that the price has gone down, we're actually starting to see more and more attention given to Bitcoin. That's not always negative or even sometimes positive, like the recent segment on 60 Minutes or the recent Kurt Russell movie. So it's growing more and more as a cultural phenomenon as well. And at the same time that all this stuff is happening, the major fiat currencies continue to suffer from constant inflation and to drive people away from fiat and into gold or into digital gold, Bitcoin. Nor, of course, can we ignore the global debt mountain, which will come crumbling down at some point as it's going to be impossible to pay, driving even major fiat currencies like the dollar or the euro potentially into a free fall. You can throw some good old-fashioned trade wars on top of all that other turmoil, and you can begin to see why people are so interested in Bitcoin. I see Bitcoin as the world's strongest non-sovereign wealth hedge. Now, everything I just mentioned here is happening now. This is at the early adopter stage. When we start to see more of this happening, more companies accepting, more companies building, etc., 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 then we can start moving into that early majority phase. But these are the door openers right now. As acceptance continues to grow, we may even see things like the following happen. The collapse of some fiat currencies. The global economy, after all, is really a house of cards at the moment. It's totally crazy, and it's only a matter of time before we start seeing some of the major currencies starting to falter. Then we might see oil or other key commodities actually being traded for Bitcoin. This would be massive and could accelerate the decline of the petrodollar exponentially. When Bitcoin or maybe even some gold-backed kind of cryptos actually start being used for oil sales, oh man, that is going to shake the markets up big time. It may even become the standard for oil sales internationally. Very speculative, but it could happen. This massive acceptance could be the final push towards what is really the holy grail for those who believe in the concept of hyper-Bitcoinization, or the transition from inferior fiat currencies to a superior math-based currency. And that is Bitcoin becoming an international unit of account. That is to say that things will actually be priced in Bitcoin. Kind of crazy, but again, long term could happen. If we see oil or even other commodities being priced in Bitcoin, they could be the perfect use case for it, actually. That will be the start. And especially when it reaches that stage of adoption, things will go crazy, guys. Now, another big piece in the puzzle here is that when countries start intentionally hoarding Bitcoin for their central bank reserves alongside gold and other forex, that'll be a massive moment. It'll be a huge breakthrough of unbelievable proportion for the crypto economy. I would look to the financial refugees, countries like Iran or Venezuela or Russia, or perhaps the small innovator countries like Switzerland or Malta to be the first ones to publicly announce they are doing that. Then, of course, we have the possibility that a country actually starts using Bitcoin as an official currency within their country, assuming that it has become, by that point, some kind of a unit of account for commodities. This could be possible. Then, of course, the ultimate goal, Bitcoin as the global monetary standard. But that is not to say that Bitcoin will be the money used in every country every day, but that it could be the new gold standard in terms of value, with other currencies on other chains linked to the underlying value of Bitcoin. Or perhaps a mix of some other kind of realities coming into play here. All food for thought, guys. Now, I realize I have just talked about Bitcoin here, of course, but actually, we really need to expand this vision in order to encompass all of cryptocurrencies. Because we will start seeing big things happening. Things like land registry for entire countries on Ethereum, local currencies run on Cardano, etc., etc., etc. And I say that as someone who loves Bitcoin. But I am far from a Bitcoin maximalist, and I believe that we will see waves upon waves of innovation across the entire blockchain world, with various cryptocurrencies being developed, various different blockchains being incredibly relevant and used by all kinds of players. Bitcoin will be one of the many, but Bitcoin may continue to be the most important. So for you listening to the video today, there is all of this to consider. And consider this. Right now, you have the opportunity to buy these assets before they go mainstream. We haven't hit that 68% middle sweet spot yet. You can do it before these are household names, before everyone knows about them, before Wall Street buys up big time, before countries start using Bitcoin, before that 68% majority arrives. When we hit peak Bitcoin adoption, when we cross that tipping point, the absolute lion's share of the investment opportunity will be gone. Now, that's not to say that there won't still be opportunity, and that is still a long way from happening. But it's something to consider. You can, of course, just check this chart here that shows the adoption curve with the market share curve, and then we can imagine how the price will move along with these different movements. And then, based on that information, we can act accordingly. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. As always, massively appreciate your time. So thank you so much. And if you did enjoy today's video, please consider leaving a thumbs up on it. It helps the algorithm gods decide which videos go higher or not. And I would love to know your thoughts about any of this stuff down below. Make sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, and click that bell to know when I put out a new video. Long live the blockchain, and peace out till next time.